Hello again here on eNCA, DSTV Channel 43. Thank you very much for joining us. You are joining us as we continue our discussion about climate change and the fact that in the election manifestos ahead of Monday's local government election, there is mention by some parties, including the big three, ANC, DA and the EFF, but it's just like, you know, in passing, if I may say so. They use the right words, sustainability, green economy, but not exactly how they're going to do it. And we see there's research globally that shows that at the local government level, that is where you can effect very meaningful change in terms of dealing with climate change. I mean, United Nations Development Program says that with more than 70% of climate reduction measures and as much as 90% of climate adaptation measures undertaken by local government, you've seen that successfully contributing to national climate strategies. So it means you need to plan. It means you need to plan. If we are going to hold our new councillors to account in terms of climate change, Desmond, if I can start with you in this discussion, we're going to have to ask them, what is the plan? They have to have, for example, disaster risk reduction management responses in terms of whether developing green infrastructure, implement waste reduction plans. I mean, there has to be a plan.
Dan, that is correct. And at the moment, we do not have an emergency plan in case of any disaster in Durban. So I think that's going to be one of the very important issues that the new councillors that are going to be elected on Monday will have to come into and ensure that those plans are up and running. Because you don't want to wait for a disaster to happen before you realize there's no plan in place. The other very important thing, they would have to come together and put in place budgets, ensure that the legislation that we want to introduce in Durban so that citizens are protected, especially those that are vulnerable. They must ensure that there's funds readily available so that when these disasters do hit the city, our city is prepared. People are not yet vulnerable, but people can be assisted immediately rather than wait for months after that and still living in conditions that are very poorly. And we're still waiting for that assistance. So I would urge the councils that are coming into place to work with the communities, ensure that whatever plans are developed for our city in Durban, to work together with people who have the knowledge, who are prepared to give up their time, so we can develop an integrated and comprehensive plan for our citizens in Durban.
And from the Anglican Church's side, I mean, I don't know if, Reverend Mash, you serve on any forums that do to climate change, representing the Anglican Church as their environmental coordinator. What are the messages you are sending out there, especially to your faithfuls, in the role they can play in their various local communities? I mean, going forward, because everywhere you're going to need a plan. What should the focus be?
I think the community level is the most important level in some ways. They say if you wait for politicians, you're going to wait too long. If you try and act as an individual, it's going to be too little. But if we act as communities, it can be enough. And I think what we are saying to the faith communities, this is part of our core business as people of faith, that we have to be involved in these issues of the environment, of caring for creation, of caring for our communities. And I think we also need to remember that democracy is not a one-day thing, that it's not just voting on one day and then you give up and you hand over to the politicians. We all have a responsibility to look at our municipalities' climate change policies, to go to those meetings where we can input into them, to get to form a relationship with our ward councillors and to say, this is what we want to see. These are the changes that we want to see implemented in the areas where we live and work. So it's an ongoing thing. I think we need to talk more about participatory democracy and not just about voting on one day and then we give up.
Yeah, and then we sit back and we blame, we complain, we moan, instead of doing something as communities. Because the world is in a different place now, as revealed and exposed to all of us by the global coronavirus pandemic. We can do something and we must. But from your perspective, Ndoni, as a climate change scientist, what would be the key cogs of any plan at a local level? For example, I'm thinking now, If I was Mpho, well, he's currently the mayor. Let me correct it. I don't know if the ANC wins the election, he will continue to be the ANC mayor. But for now, he's the mayor. But if I was the mayor of Johannesburg, like the current mayor, Mr. Mpho, I would be thinking, how can I source new, clean, local energy and not rely on Eskom? I mean, look at the bloody mess we're in right now this week with stage 4 blackouts.
It's crazy because, you know, we have the solutions in our libraries, we have the solutions in our institutions. And I'm going to be biased and obviously focused on the researcher side and the sciences side. And I love the connection around communities, but there needs to be climate action that's focused at the university level by empowering expert knowledge so that we can be able to tell our stories. A recent article that was published by BBC said that 1% of researchers are from Africa, or African researchers, 1%. That means who's actually telling the story around energy, who's informing
climate
us?
change researchers.
Climate change
only
researchers,
1%,
only 1%
in the whole world are from the continent.
Are from Africa.
That's poor.
And so that's very poor, and then poor. But then the worst part is when you look at the females, that there's only 19, not 19%, but 19 are women, are female researchers. And so I'm very passionate around, if we look for renewable energy solutions, who's informing us and how?
Is that perhaps why, sorry to come in then, Ndoni, that why we're not seeing a lot of substantive, significant mention or focus in the election manifestos at the local government, for the local government elections, around about climate change? Maybe there's not enough knowledge sitting in the political parties. There is some, but not enough to raise this issue to the right level.
Yes, definitely. So there's definitely a knowledge gap. There is an indigenous knowledge gap, so local systems, academic researchers that actually need to have positions and power and investment from the government to say, I want to skill you up and give you the right modeling, the right data collection, the right access to information that's going to help us inform decisions and what is a priority that we need to do in our continent.
Yeah, we have about 4 minutes to go before we end, but I just want to, as we wrap up here, to give each of you an opportunity just to say, I mean, if you were advising any of these councillors, okay, and they're on the campaign trail today, last minute kind of trying to woo us as voters, what would be these things that you say in terms of climate change? You're now in the council chambers after the elections have been declared, wherever you are, in the big 8 metros, or you are in the smaller towns or rural areas. What are these 3 key things you should put on the table? Make sure, from a climate change perspective, because the consequences touch us everywhere. The poverty, you will not be able to alleviate it with climate change if you don't fix the whole issue. Inequality you might not be able to address. Joblessness, there will also be opportunities. Desmond, I'm going to start with you as we wrap. What would those 3 things be for you if the new eThekwini Metro came to you, based there down in Durbs, to say, can you tell us, what do we do? What are the 3 things?
Put the planet and people first. And the second question would be, let's ensure that we adapt, provide adaptation methods with real funding for adaptation and mitigation, so that we can reduce the chemicals that cause the climate crisis that we've currently think. And you know, South Africa is the highest emitter of greenhouse gases on the continent. Let's start moving at local level. We can start investing in renewable energy, such as solar and wind, and we can start putting in those very easily and cheaply. Let's not depend on coal-fired power stations. Let's not depend on gas and oil. Let's move directly. Let's take the plant. Let's invest, and let's set up renewable energy factories such as solar in local communities. You will create jobs, but you'll also reduce the harm to people.
And the third one?
The third one would be that there must be a willingness to move away from the grid. There must be a willingness from the municipality. So they must develop action plans so that people can get off the grid and they can access energy at a very cheap level, but also energy that they can control and maintain and manage.
Yeah. Reverend Dr. Mash?
Thank you. I think the 3 things I would say is they have to be visionary. Give us hope. Give us a vision of the future. Firstly, renewable energy can create many jobs. We are importing so many things from China and other places. Let us produce local items such as solar voltaic panels, such as the funnels for the wind farms. These should all be being produced locally. Secondly, we need decent transport system, public transport system. People's lives are a misery because they take so many hours. Our transport is unsafe and it takes hours for people to get to work. One of the major ways that we can...
sorry to cut in there on the transport. I was just thinking, I saw a story a few months ago that in Nairobi, the Kenyans, they've developed an electric bus, a bus that runs on electricity. I mean, how climate friendly can you get? But I mean, there are opportunities here, as you say, Reverend Mash. Sorry to cut in there.
Yeah, so efficient public transport, particularly our train system. And there are lots of opportunities now for investment coming out of COP26. Countries are wanting to invest. We have this amazing opportunity. And the third thing is in terms of decentralized energy production. Schools can make income. Small NPOs can make income. All people's homes can make income. But what we need is feed-in tariffs, so that the small organizations can begin to make some profit from generating energy and feeding into the grid. And I think in order to do that, we need to cut our municipal electricity billing away from the production of energy. Because at the moment, most municipalities are not keen on having renewable energy because they say it's going to reduce our income. So we need to look at how we cut the billing for the electricity away from the municipalities and sort that out so people will be incentivized to produce energy rather than the municipalities seeing it as a threat, because if I produce my own energy now, I'm going to reduce the income for the municipality. Those are the three areas I think I would focus on.
Point. Yeah, thank you very much, Reverend Rachel. Final word to you, Ndoni, as a scientist here.
So definitely I would say, how do we solve poverty with green jobs? So if we can create jobs within the climate sustainability space, we kind of killing two bullets with one stone.
And this at the local level.
And this is at the local level, very important. And there are many projects on the ground that are doing this. Waste recycling programs, all of that is on the ground. So green jobs, alleviating poverty and increasing our economy. The second one would be skills and education and capacity development. We talk about this at a very high level. You go to the community and you start saying adaptation, mitigation, climate change, and they say, what on earth? How do we communicate?
To you now, what are you talking about?
Exactly. COP26, what is that? So all of this is at a local level. We need to learn as the government how we inform people so that they know, so that by the time we get into a higher level conversation, you're not confused and they get lost along the way. And the third part would be focusing on data and information access and skills capacity access, especially to young research institutions, and just gathering our own knowledge and our own information so that we can tell our own story.
I mean, 1% of climate change researchers in the world are in Africa. That's a poor number. What a shame. Anyway, thank you very much for having spent this time with me here on eNCA this afternoon as we build up to Monday's local government elections on this very, very crucial subject of climate change. It has to sit on those council chambers tables. We have to really tackle it if we're serious about making sure the future is going to be a prosperous one for our country. And let's not forget, South Africa is a water-scarce country. We're semi-dry. The water situation is going to get worse and worse as temperatures rise and rise. Just one aspect of climate change. That was climate scientist Ndoni Mcunu, Desmond D'sa from the South Durban Community Environmental Alliance, on Zoom to us from eThekwini, and Reverend Rachel, that's Dr. Rachel Mash, Environmental Coordinator at the Anglican Church of South Africa, zooming to us from Cape Town. They joined us now to discuss that important role for political parties to tackle climate change issues and sending out messages to that effect as they go about attracting voters for Monday's polls.